She was losing every stat that matters, and still walked away a winner. Picture this. A 21-year-old woman steps onto a hard court in Washington, D.C. against an Olympic gold medalist who is firing serves so fast the radar gun practically catches fire. She gets outserved 14 aces to 4. The next night, she walks back out against a Grand Slam finalist who outhits her 25 winners to 10. By every number that television broadcasters love to flash on screen, she should have lost both matches. Twice, in 2 days. She didn't lose either one. If you clicked on this because you saw the name Eala trending and had no idea why a tennis player from the Philippines was suddenly everywhere, stay with me. Because what happened in Washington this week isn't just a good tournament. It might be the moment we look back on and say, that's when everything changed for her. The hook you didn't see coming. Here's the twist nobody's talking about enough. In modern tennis, the stat sheet almost never lies. Aces predict winners. Winners predict wins. When a player gets demolished in both categories, across 2 consecutive matches, against 2 accomplished former champions, that player loses. That is the sport's most reliable pattern. Eala broke it, twice, back-to-back, against 2 completely different styles of opponent, using 2 completely different survival methods. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how she did it, why tennis insiders and a former world #1 are suddenly using words like phenomenon, and why the empty box still sitting on her resume, the one thing she hasn't done yet, might be the most nerve-wracking part of her entire story. If you love underdog stories, comeback stories, or just want to understand why an entire country is falling in love with one tennis player this summer, make sure you subscribe before we go further, because this channel is about to be covering her every single step of the way, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Now let's go inside the 2 matches that started it all. Setting the scene, Washington falls in love. The Mubadala City DC Open is not a small event. It's a WTA 500 tournament, a hard-court tune-up before the US Open, packed with established American stars and former Grand Slam champions. It is not the kind of tournament where a 21-year-old ranked outside the top 25 usually becomes the main event. But that's exactly what happened. Tournament chairman Mark Ein told reporters that in the weeks after Eala's participation was confirmed, ticket requests exploded. His words were blunt. Over the last month, at least 80%, if not more, of every single ticketing inquiry his staff received was some version of the same question. When is Eala playing? Filipino flags filled the stands before she'd even played a point. This was her tournament debut in the US Capitol. And the crowd noise on her opening match, by multiple accounts, was the loudest the tournament had heard all week. So who was she playing? And why should any of this have been difficult for her? Round 1, the Olympic champion who should have ended it fast. Her first-round opponent was Zheng Qinwen, the reigning Olympic gold medalist from the Paris Games, a former world #4, playing in Washington on a wild card after a brutal, injury-riddled stretch had dropped her ranking outside the top 100. Zheng owns one of the most dangerous serves in the women's game. On a hard court, that serve becomes even more lethal because the ball skids through low and fast, and there's no time to adjust. The two had actually met once before, years earlier at the Asian Games, and Zheng had won that meeting. So this wasn't just a first-time test. There was history here, and it wasn't in Eala's favor. From the very first game, the serve battle was one-sided. Zheng's delivery was untouchable. Ball after ball came in at spots Eala simply couldn't reach in time. By the time the dust settled on the opening set, Zheng had claimed it. Eala was already searching for answers in a match that was slipping away. Then it got worse. Midway through the second set, serving at 4-3, Zheng broke Eala's serve at love, meaning Eala didn't win a single point on her own serve in that game. Zheng was now 2 games away from finishing the match in straight sets. This was the moment where, in years past, this version of Eala might have folded. A bigger server had found her range. A former top 5 player smelled blood. Instead, something shifted. Eala broke right back. Immediately, no hesitation, no time to let the deficit settle into her head. And then she just kept winning games. Over the closing stretch of that match, she won 9 of the final 10 games played. 7 of those came in an uninterrupted streak. She surged into a commanding 4-0 lead in the deciding third set and never allowed Zheng back into it. Final score: 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. 2 hours and 26 minutes on court. Here's the number that makes this genuinely strange, though. Zheng finished the match having fired 14 aces. 14 free points, no rally required, no defense possible. Eala managed just 4. In almost any tennis match at this level, a 14-4 gap in aces should be decisive on its own. It usually means the other player has to be nearly flawless in every single rally just to stay competitive, because they're constantly playing from behind the count. So how do you lose the ace battle by 10 and still win comfortably? The explanation isn't really about power. It's about what happened in the errors column. Zheng, for all that firepower, finished the match having committed 46 unforced errors. 46 unforced mistakes is an enormous number at the professional level. It means that even with the serve working, the rest of the game wasn't holding up under sustained pressure. Eala's game plan wasn't to out-hit an Olympic champion. It was to make her play one more ball over and over until the cracks appeared. Asked about her mindset afterward, Eala didn't credit some new tactical trick. She said something simpler and honestly more revealing. She said the fighting mentality had always been inside her, but the progress she'd made over the past year had given her more tools, more ammunition, to actually back that mentality up when the score turned against her. That's a young athlete telling you, in real time, that she has changed. And 24 hours later, she'd prove it in a completely different way. Round 2. The champion who knew exactly how to beat her. If beating Zheng was about outlasting raw power, her very next opponent presented an entirely different puzzle. Leylah Fernandez walked into their round of 16 match as the 7th seed and the tournament's reigning defending champion. A former US Open finalist with a game built on angles, aggression, and a left-handed swing that scrambles the usual patterns right-handed players are used to seeing. And critically, Fernandez wasn't a stranger. Earlier in the season, she had already beaten Eala in straight sets, a result that was controlled and convincing at the time. Fernandez knew where the pressure points were. She had already found them once. And Eala actually opened strong, taking the first set 6-2. But Fernandez adjusted. She got more aggressive, found deeper, more precise shots, and reeled off 5 consecutive games to storm into a commanding 5-1 lead in the second set. One more game, just one, and this match would be heading to a deciding third set, with Eala having already spent nearly 2.5 hours on court fighting Zheng the day before. The crowd was loud. The wind was swirling. This was exactly the kind of moment that, historically, had been the crack in Eala's game. The moment where the spectacular afternoons would suddenly turn into the early exits. It didn't happen. From 1-5 down, Eala won 5 straight games of her own, climbing all the way back to 6-5. Fernandez held her nerve to force a tiebreak. And then, in the biggest moment of the match, Eala produced her cleanest tennis of the entire day, surging to a 5-1 lead in the breaker as Fernandez's errors piled up under the pressure, before slamming 2 consecutive forehand winners to seal it. Final tiebreak score, 7-1. Match final, 6-2, 7-6, 1. 1 hour and 53 minutes. Now here's the number that should stop you in your tracks. Across that entire match, Eala finished with just 10 winners. Fernandez finished with 25. 15 more clean, untouchable, opponent cannot return winners than the woman who actually won the match. Think about what that means. A winner is a shot the opponent literally cannot get a racket on. It's the highlight reel stuff. Fernandez produced far more of that eye-catching, aggressive tennis. And she still lost in straight sets. The gap shows up somewhere else, in the unforced error column, where Eala was simply cleaner point after point, refusing to hand away free mistakes even while absorbing everything Fernandez threw at her. Afterward, Eala was candid about how uncomfortable that stretch actually felt. She admitted she could sense her level dropping while Fernandez's was rising, and that those moments are genuinely tricky because you want to fix things immediately, but sometimes the answers just don't arrive on command. Her solution wasn't to force a big shot and hope. It was patience, staying in the point, trusting that if she kept giving Fernandez one more ball to deal with, the match would eventually turn. It did. And with that win, Eala also leveled her career head-to-head with Fernandez at 1-1, erasing that earlier loss from the record in the most emphatic possible venue. as the very champion Fernandez was trying to defend. Why these two numbers matter more than any trophy. Now let's zoom out, because this is the part where the story stops being about two matches and starts being about a career. For most of her young career, Eala has been known as a player capable of unbelievable afternoons. She's the highest-ranked player in Philippine tennis history. At just 19 years old, ranked outside the top 100 on a wild card, she took down five-time Grand Slam champion Iga Swiatek at the Miami Open, beating three major champions on her way to a shock semifinal run that introduced her to the tennis world. Since then, she's trained relentlessly at the Rafael Nadal Academy, building her game piece by piece. But there was always a however. Spectacular wins were often followed by early exits. She had reached a WTA Tour level final in Eastbourne and came within 2 points of the trophy, and didn't close it. The ceiling was obvious to anyone who watched her play. The floor was the question mark. This year, that question has been getting answered in increasingly dramatic fashion. In Berlin, she took down Aryna Svitolina-caliber veteran Alina Svitolina, one of the smartest, most disciplined competitors on tour, someone who does not hand away matches through careless errors. She beat former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina after falling behind. And then came Wimbledon. On center court, against defending champion Iga Swiatek, the same player she'd first shocked as a teenager in Miami, Eala produced a stunning 7-6, 9, 6-2 upset, saving 2 set points in an 84-minute opening set for the ages. She became the first Filipina in the Open era to reach the second week of a Grand Slam, surpassing records that had stood in Philippine tennis for over 7 decades. She broke down in tears afterward, telling the crowd that for a legend like Swiatek, a moment like this might seem small, but for someone who grew up training with her brother and grandfather after school in the Philippines, it was everything. She would go on to lose in the 4th round to Jasmine Paolini in a tight 3-setter. A reminder that the climb isn't finished, that there are still steps left to take. But by the numbers, her season had already transformed. A 12-4 record on grass, a WTA 125 title in Birmingham, a semi-final in Berlin, and a career record against top 10 opponents that has climbed to an eye-catching 7 wins and 4 losses. Then came Washington. 2 more statistically improbable wins back-to-back against 2 completely different styles of opponent, using 2 completely different survival strategies. Against Zheng, it was about absorbing firepower and waiting for the cracks. Against Fernandez, it was about controlling errors while getting out-hit. Different problems. Same result. The empty box. Here's where I need you to sit with something, because this is the part of the story that isn't finished yet, and it's the part that's going to define whatever comes next. Despite everything, the Olympic champions beaten, the Grand Slam finalists dismantled, the defending champion knocked out in her own tournament, the historic Wimbledon run, the career-high ranking hovering around world number 28, Eala has never won a WTA Tour-level singles title. Not one. She has titles at the lower WTA 125 level. She has come agonizingly close at Tour level twice without closing the door. That's the box that's still empty. And it's the exact question Washington raises but does not answer. Can she take the same discipline, the patience against Fernandez, the refusal to fold against Zheng, and carry it not just into a second-round match, but into a final, with a trophy sitting in the room and everyone watching to see if she blinks? Can she protect this newly discovered floor when the stakes stop being, can she survive, and start being, can she finish? Former world number 1 Andy Roddick has already weighed in on where this is heading, calling her rise a very real story and a genuine phenomenon. Not because the journey is complete, but because the tennis world can no longer treat every big Eala win as a fluke that disappears the following week. The pattern is too consistent now. Swiatek, Rybakina, Svitolina, Zheng, Fernandez. Different surfaces, different styles, different kinds of pressure. All of them solved. There's also the human side of this that makes it different from a normal ranking story. When Eala was asked in Washington what it felt like to become this popular around the world, she flipped the question back. She said the more interesting question was what it felt like to be Filipino right now, and then thanked the crowd in Tagalog. She has said publicly that she sees the weight of that support as a privilege, not a burden. But make no mistake, it is weight. She isn't just collecting ranking points anymore. She's carrying the hopes of fans who, by the tournament's own admission, are showing up to a hard court event in Washington, D.C. for the very first time in their lives specifically because of her. What happens now? Here's why this moment matters more than a typical good week on tour. For roughly 2 years, the standard game plan against Eala was simple, and it worked often enough to keep her career defined by peaks and valleys. Stay close, extend the rallies, wait for her spectacular level to fall off, and make her prove she can keep winning once the magic runs out. Washington broke that plan in real time twice, in front of a sold-out, flag-waving crowd. Zheng tried to end it with an avalanche of aces. It wasn't enough. Fernandez tried to end it with a blistering run of winners and a 5-game lead. It wasn't enough either. The rest of the WTA Tour now has to find a different answer. And with the US Open looming and no single dominant player currently running away with the women's game, every tournament is an opportunity, which means a rising 21-year-old with an expanding floor and an already terrifying ceiling is walking into the most dangerous stretch of her career at exactly the moment opponents are running out of easy solutions. 14 aces to 4. 10 winners to 25. 2 champions beaten in 2 days. In a city that fell in love with her before she'd even finished unpacking. Not because Eala controlled every statistic on the page. She didn't come close in either match. But because she controlled the decisions that mattered when it counted. That empty box, the first WTA Tour title, is still sitting there. It might not stay empty for long. If you want to be here when it happens, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the story is moving fast, and we're going to be covering every single step of Eala's climb, all the way to whatever comes next. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think she wins her first title before the US Open? I'll see you in the next one.